The massive silver ship hung in space above Earth like a polished mirror catching starlight. Inside the vessel, Commander Zethrak of the Zephyrian Confederacy adjusted his breathing apparatus and reviewed the first contact protocols for the 100th time. Everything had to be perfect. This was humanity's first meeting with alien life, and the Confederacy had learned from 12 other successful first contacts with rational species across the galaxy. All systems ready, Commander, reported his second-in-command, Officer Nithara. Her blue-scaled hands moved across the control panels with practiced precision. Communication arrays are active. Translation protocols are loaded. Diplomatic gifts are prepared. Zethrak nodded. The gifts were standard: precious metals, advanced medical supplies, and star charts. Every intelligent species valued these things. It was logical. It was predictable. It always worked. Begin transmission, he ordered. The message was simple and clear. The Zephyrian Confederacy came in peace. They wished to establish trade relations and peaceful borders. They requested a meeting with Earth's highest leaders to discuss mutual benefits. The message was sent in 17 different mathematical languages that any spacefaring civilization should understand. The response came 3 days later. Commander, Nithara said, her voice filled with confusion. We're receiving a reply from Earth. Excellent. Patch it through. The main screen flickered to life, and Zethrak found himself staring at something completely unexpected. Instead of a government official or military commander, a human male with wild hair and paint on his face grinned at them. Behind him, other humans were doing incomprehensible things. Some were hanging upside down. Others were juggling objects that appeared to be on fire. Greetings, alien dudes, the human shouted. Welcome to Earth. I'm Dave, and these are my friends from the International Committee of Awesome People. We're here to represent humanity because, honestly, politicians are boring and we figured you'd want to meet the fun humans first. Zethrak's breathing apparatus made a choking sound. What is the meaning of this? Where are your leaders? Oh, they're around, Dave said, waving a hand dismissively. But they sent us because we're way more interesting. Look, I brought a circus. He gestured to the humans behind him. One was walking on a thin wire stretched between two poles while another was making colorful explosions with chemicals. That appears dangerous, Officer Nithara whispered. Super dangerous. Dave agreed cheerfully. Isn't it great? Hey, want to see something really cool? Without waiting for an answer, he turned to someone off-screen. Jenny, show them the thing. A human female appeared, strapped into what looked like a mechanical death trap. She was launched into the air at tremendous speed, spinning and flipping before landing safely on a soft surface. The humans watching cheered and applauded. What was the purpose of that activity? Zethrak asked. Fun, Dave replied. It's called a human cannonball. Jenny here holds 3 world records. Records for what? For being shot out of cannons the farthest. Isn't that amazing? Zethrak looked at his crew. Every single one of them wore expressions of deep concern. This was not going according to any protocol they had ever studied. Perhaps, he said carefully, we could speak with someone from your government. Sure thing. Hey, Professor Williams, Dave called out. A woman in a lab coat appeared, but she was covered in soot and her hair was smoking slightly. Sorry about the delay, she said. I was just testing a new explosive compound. The last batch was only 3 times more powerful than I calculated, so this one should be much more exciting. You deliberately create explosives for no strategic purpose? Nithara asked. Oh no, there's a purpose, Professor Williams said. We shoot them into the sky and they make beautiful colors and patterns. We call them fireworks. Children especially love them. Though the loud noises scare some people. That's part of the fun, too. Zethrak's head was beginning to ache. Let me understand this correctly. You create explosive devices that serve no military or construction purpose, launch them into your atmosphere, and expose your offspring to loud noises that cause fear. For entertainment. Exactly, Dave said. You're getting it. Oh, and speaking of entertainment, wait until you hear about horror movies. What are horror movies? They're recordings of stories designed to terrify people. Humans pay money to sit in dark rooms and be frightened by images of monsters and violence. The scarier, the better. Some people even have contests to see who can watch the most terrifying ones without screaming. Officer Nithara leaned over to whisper in Zethrak's ear. Commander, I believe this species may be suffering from some form of mental disorder. Before Zethrak could respond, another human appeared on screen. This one was wearing strange clothing and appeared to be soaking wet. "Sorry I'm late," the new human said. "I was just finishing my base jumping session. Had to wait for the weather to get really dangerous, you know how it is." "I do not know how it is," Zethrak said weakly. "Please explain base jumping." "Simple. You find the tallest cliff or building you can, strap on a small parachute and throw yourself off. The goal is to fall as far as possible before opening the parachute. The closer you cut it to hitting the ground, the more points you get." "Points for what?"
"For style."
"And bragging rights. Oh, and sometimes we do it in storms or at night to make it more challenging." Zethrak realized his breathing was becoming rapid and shallow. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never encountered anything like this. "Do your people have some sort of death wish?" "Death wish?" Dave laughed. "No way, we love life. That's why we try to fit as much excitement into it as possible. Life's no fun if you're not living on the edge." "But these activities could result in death," Nithara pointed out. "Sure, but probably not," Dave said. "And even if they did, at least it would be awesome. Hey, want to see our extreme sports compilation video?" Without waiting for permission, the humans began showing footage of their people doing incomprehensible things. They jumped out of perfectly functional aircraft. They slid down mountains on thin boards while dodging trees. They dove into water from impossible heights. They raced mechanical vehicles at speeds that would liquefy most species. And they did it while taking sharp turns that should have resulted in certain death. "This is recreational?" Zethrak asked in horror. "The best kind," Dave confirmed. "And wait until you see what we do for professional sports. We have one where two teams try to carry an inflated animal skin across a field, while the other team tries to stop them by physically tackling them to the ground." "That sounds violent." "It is. It's called football and it's super popular. We also have one where people fight each other in a ring until one of them can't get up anymore, and another where they hit a small ball with a stick, while someone throws another ball at them as hard as possible." Professor Williams reappeared, now with a bandage on her forehead. "Don't forget about the one where they drive cars in circles for hours at speeds that would kill them if they made one small mistake." "And people watch these activities for entertainment?" Officer Nithara asked. "Watch them. Some of the most popular humans on the planet are the ones who play these games. We worship athletes who can run faster, jump higher, and hit harder than anyone else." Zethrak stood up abruptly. "I believe we need to consult with our xenobiological specialists before continuing this conversation." "Cool," Dave said. "Take your time. We'll be here doing human stuff. Jenny's working on a new cannonball distance record, and Professor Williams wants to show us her latest explosive compounds. Should be a blast." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. "Commander," Nithara said quietly, "I recommend we classify this species as mentally unstable." Zethrak nodded slowly. "Agreed, but we must study them further. A species this clearly insane shouldn't have been able to achieve spaceflight, yet here they are. There's something we're missing." He looked at the star charts showing Earth's location. "Send a message to the Confederacy Council. Tell them we've found humans, and they're going to need to completely rewrite the First Contact Manual." 6 months had passed since First Contact, and the Zephyrian research stations orbiting Earth were working around the clock. Commander Zethrak had been promoted to head of the new Human Studies Division, a department that was growing larger every week as more alien scientists demanded to study what they had begun calling the impossible species. Dr. Kethvar, the Confederacy's leading xenopsychologist, reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were completely insane by any rational standard, yet somehow their civilization was not only functional but thriving. "The pattern is consistent across all human settlements," he reported to the morning briefing. "They engage in deliberately dangerous activities for what they call fun or excitement. Yesterday we observed a group of humans intentionally jumping into freezing water during their winter season. When asked why, they said it was refreshing and good for character building." Officer Nithara, now assigned permanently to the Human Observation Team, added her own findings. "It gets worse. We've documented humans who climb vertical rock faces using only their hands and feet with no safety equipment. When they fall, other humans call them brave and inspiring. Some even attempt the same climb immediately afterward. Have you determined if this is some form of religious practice?" asked Commander Zethrak. "No, sir. We asked several climbers about their beliefs. One said he climbed because mountains don't climb themselves. Another said she did it to see what was up there. Even though they have satellite imagery showing exactly what was up there, more rock and snow. Dr. Kethvar pulled up a holographic display showing human brain scans. We've been monitoring human neurological activity during these dangerous activities. Instead of the fear and stress responses we would expect, their brains release chemicals that appear to make them feel pleasure. They are literally rewarded by their own bodies for engaging in potentially fatal behavior. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. There's more, Dr. Kethvar continued. We've observed humans who voluntarily consume toxic substances that impair their judgment and motor functions. They call it drinking alcohol and consider it social bonding. We've also documented humans who ingest plant compounds that cause hallucinations and temporary mental instability, claiming it expands consciousness. Commander Zethrak shook his head. Any species this self-destructive should have eliminated itself within a few generations. How are they still alive? That's the most puzzling part, Officer Nithara said. Not only are they still alive, but they're expanding across their solar system. They've established colonies on their moon, and are planning missions to other planets, including one they call Mars that appears to be completely hostile to life. They want to live on a planet that will kill them? Apparently, that's what makes it interesting to them. One human we interviewed said, and I quote, "If it was easy, everyone would do it." Dr. Kethvar switched to a new set of data. We've also been studying their response to crisis situations. Logic suggests that when faced with danger, they should retreat and seek safety. Instead, humans often move toward the danger. We observed several instances where humans ran into burning buildings to rescue other humans. Some didn't even know the people they were saving. Perhaps they were related? No, sir. Complete strangers. When asked why, one human said someone needed help. Another said, it was the right thing to do. They seemed confused by our questions, as if the behavior was completely normal. Commander Zethrak rubbed his temples. What about their military? Surely their warriors show more rational behavior? Officer Nithara laughed bitterly. Sir, their military might be the most insane of all. We've studied their historical records. Humans have a tradition called last stands, where small groups of soldiers fight against impossible odds rather than surrender. They consider this heroic. That's tactically unsound. It gets worse. They have something called special forces, elite soldiers who volunteer for the most dangerous missions possible. They compete with each other to see who can complete the most difficult assignments. One unit's motto is "Who dares wins," another is "Death before dishonor." Dr. Kethvar nodded grimly. We've also observed their scientists. By all logic, scientific research should be methodical and safe. Human scientists regularly work with deadly diseases, explosive chemicals, and radioactive materials. Some of them have died in laboratory accidents, yet others continue the same research. Why would they do that? Curiosity, they say. They want to understand how things work, even if finding out might kill them. We documented one human physicist who exposed herself to radiation while discovering new elements. When she began suffering from radiation poisoning, she continued her work until she died. Other humans called her a hero and continued her research. The briefing continued for hours, each new report more baffling than the last. Humans drove vehicles at dangerous speeds for entertainment. They participated in contact sports that frequently resulted in injury. They explored the deepest parts of their oceans and the highest peaks of their mountains. They even shot themselves into space in primitive rockets, knowing the trip could kill them. What worried the Zephyrian researchers most was that some of their own people were beginning to show signs of what they were calling human influence syndrome. We've had to rotate research teams frequently, Dr. Kethvar admitted. Extended exposure to human behavior appears to be contagious. Several of our scientists have begun questioning standard protocols. One asked why we don't explore the dangerous radiation zones in our own system. Another suggested we might learn more if we took calculated risks in our experiments. That's concerning, Commander Zethrak said. It gets worse, sir. 3 researchers have requested transfers to Earth-based observation posts. They claim they want to better understand human psychology, but their psychological evaluations show elevated excitement levels and decreased risk aversion. One of them asked if she could try something called a roller coaster. Commander Zethrak stood and paced around the room. We need to establish stricter quarantine protocols. This human madness cannot be allowed to spread through the Confederacy. Sir, Officer Nithara said hesitantly. There's something else. We've been monitoring human entertainment media, and we've discovered they have entire industries dedicated to frightening themselves. They create fictional stories about monsters, disasters, and death, then consume this content voluntarily. Why would they want to be frightened? They say it's exciting and helps them feel alive. We've observed humans watching something called horror movies while eating food and laughing with friends. They appear to enjoy being terrified. Dr. Kethavar pulled up a new display. We've also discovered that humans form emotional attachments to almost anything. They bond with other species, keeping dangerous predators as pets. They name their vehicles and speak to them affectionately. Some humans have been observed forming emotional relationships with plants. Plants? Yes, sir. They water them, talk to them, and become distressed if the plants die. One human we observed spent hours caring for a small green organism that serves no practical purpose except to look pretty. Commander Zethrak stopped pacing. Are you suggesting that humans form pack bonds with non-sentient life forms? It appears so, sir, but it goes beyond that. We've documented humans who form emotional attachments to inanimate objects, geographical locations, even abstract concepts like freedom and justice. They'll fight and die for these attachments. The room fell quiet again as the aliens contemplated the implications. Sir, Officer Nithara said quietly, what if we're wrong about them being insane? What if there's something we're not understanding? Commander Zethrak looked at her sharply. Officer, you're showing signs of human influence syndrome. Report to Dr. Kethavar for psychological evaluation immediately. Yes, sir, she replied. But her voice carried a note of something the Zephyrians had never heard before in one of their own people. Defiance. As the briefing ended, Commander Zethrak couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. Humans were clearly insane, but they were also successful, creative, and oddly admirable in their complete rejection of rational behavior. He made a note to request additional research funding. Understanding humans was going to take much longer than anyone had anticipated. In the observation post, Officer Nithara watched a group of humans teaching their young to ride bicycles, two-wheeled vehicles that should topple over immediately. The children fell repeatedly, scraped their knees, and got back up to try again. Their parents cheered each attempt, even the failures. She found herself wondering what it would feel like to try something that difficult just for the joy of learning. The thought frightened and excited her in ways she didn't understand. Maybe, she thought, being a little crazy wasn't such a bad thing. The war began on a Tuesday. The hegemony of Zerion had been expanding across the galaxy for 3 centuries, consuming civilizations with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Their military doctrine was perfect. Overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision. No species had ever successfully resisted them for more than 6 months. Admiral Krexitar of the Zerion fleet studied the tactical display showing human space. 12 colonies, 1 homeworld, primitive weapons, and a population that couldn't even agree on basic governmental structures. The conquest should take 3 weeks at most. Begin the invasion, he ordered. The Zephyrian observation posts watched in horror as the Zerion war fleet descended on the outer human colonies. Commander Zethrak immediately sent warnings to the human governments, though he doubted they would respond rationally to the threat. The human response exceeded even his worst expectations for illogical behavior. Instead of surrendering or negotiating, the humans did something no civilized species had ever done. They declared that they would fight to the last person. Not only that, but they began doing things that violated every known rule of warfare. The first sign something was wrong came when the Zerians attacked the mining colony on Kepler 442b. Standard military doctrine suggested the colonists would evacuate or surrender once they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Instead, the miners grabbed their industrial equipment and turned it into weapons. Sir, reported Lieutenant Vexnall to Admiral Krekstar, the humans are using mining charges as improvised explosives. They're also employing construction mechs as combat units. Inefficient but expected from a primitive species. Continue the assault. What happened next had no precedent in galactic military history. The human miners, facing certain death, began ramming their ships directly into Zerion vessels, not targeting weapon systems or attempting to disable the enemy ships, literally crashing into them at full speed, destroying both vessels in the process. Sir, We've lost the cruiser dominance and 2 destroyers to kamikaze attacks. The humans appear to be deliberately sacrificing themselves to damage our fleet. Admiral Krextar's blood ran cold. That's impossible. No rational species commits suicide to inflict minimal damage on an enemy. But the reports kept coming. Human civilians were strapping explosives to themselves and running at Zerion ground forces. Human pilots were ramming their fighters into capital ships. Human soldiers continued fighting even after sustaining injuries that should have rendered them unconscious. On the Zephyrian observation ship, Dr. Kethvar was frantically documenting what he was witnessing. "The humans have weaponized their insanity," he reported to Commander Zethrak. "They're doing things that no military tactician would ever consider because they serve no strategic purpose except to terrify the enemy. Are they winning? No, sir. They're losing every battle, but they're making the Zerians pay a price that no other species has ever demanded. The Zerion fleet has lost 30% of its ships taking a single mining colony that should have surrendered without a fight." Commander Zethrak watched the tactical displays in fascination and horror. The humans were turning everything into weapons. They converted cargo ships into bombs. They used civilian infrastructure as military fortifications. When the Zerians took a space station, the humans rigged it to explode, killing everyone aboard, including human prisoners. "They're willing to die rather than be conquered," Officer Nithara observed. She had been cleared for duty after her psychological evaluation, though Dr. Kethvar had noted concerning levels of admiration for human behavior in her file. The war continued for months, and with each battle, the Zerian tactics became less effective. How do you fight an enemy that considers death an acceptable outcome? How do you intimidate people who voluntarily throw themselves into danger for fun? The breakthrough moment came during the Battle of New Geneva. The human defenders were outnumbered 50-1 and had no hope of victory. Standard military doctrine suggested immediate surrender to preserve civilian lives. Instead, the humans sent a message to the Zerion fleet: "Come and take it." What followed was the most brutal battle the galaxy had seen in centuries. The humans fought from building to building, floor by floor, room by room. When they ran out of ammunition, they used improvised weapons. When they ran out of weapons, they used their hands. When they were wounded, they kept fighting. When they were dying, they tried to take enemies with them. The Zerions took the city, but it cost them 3 full divisions and 6 months of siege warfare. More importantly, it cost them something they had never lost before: their certainty of victory. "Sir," Lieutenant Vexnall reported to Admiral Krextar, "the troops are reporting morale problems. They're saying the humans fight like demons. Some are requesting transfers to other fronts." "Transfers? We are the hegemony of Zerion. We do not fear primitives with inadequate technology." "Yes, sir. But the humans don't seem to know they're supposed to lose. Yesterday, a single human soldier held off an entire company for 6 hours, using nothing but a damaged rifle and improvised explosives. When we finally cornered him, he was laughing." "Laughing?" "Yes, sir," he said. "This is the best day of my life," right before he detonated the building he was in, taking 47 of our soldiers with him. Admiral Krextar stared at the tactical display. The humans had lost every major engagement, but the Zerion fleet was down to 60% strength. At this rate, they would achieve a Pyrrhic victory at best. The situation became even more incomprehensible when human reinforcements began arriving from Earth. But these weren't professional soldiers. They were volunteers. Civilians who had left their homes and families to fight in a war they couldn't possibly win. "Why are they coming?" Admiral Krextar demanded. "They know they're going to die." The answer came during an intercepted human communication. A human female was talking to her family on Earth before departing for the front lines. "I know it's dangerous, Mom," she said, "but someone has to stand up to these bullies. If we don't fight here, who's going to fight for Earth? But you could be killed." "Maybe, but I'd rather die free than live as a slave. Besides, we humans are tougher than we look. Remember what Grandpa used to say? It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." Dr. Kethvar was recording everything. The humans weren't just fighting a war, they were fighting for concepts that had no material value. Freedom, honor, the right to determine their own destiny. They were willing to die for ideas. The war took another turn when the humans began adapting Zerion technology. But they didn't use it the way it was intended. They modified it in ways that defied engineering logic. They turned defensive shields into weapons. They converted life support systems into explosive devices. They took equipment designed for one purpose and made it serve 3 different functions, none of which were safe. The humans are using our own technology against us, Lieutenant Vexnall reported, but they're using it wrong. Their modifications shouldn't work. But do they work?
Yes, sir.
Somehow they work better than the original designs. The final straw came when a human ship rammed the Xerion flagship while broadcasting something called music at maximum volume. The ship's captain was singing something about going down in a blaze of glory right up until the moment of impact. Admiral Krextar, injured in the collision, was evacuated to a medical ship. As he recovered, he reviewed casualty reports and realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans were winning, not winning battles. They were still losing most of those. But they were winning the war through sheer bloody-minded determination to never give up. They had cost the Xerion hegemony more ships, more soldiers, and more resources than any enemy in 3 centuries. Sir, his aide reported, High Command is asking for updated casualty projections. Admiral Krextar looked at the numbers. At the current rate of attrition, conquering human space would cost the hegemony its entire fleet. And even then, there was no guarantee the humans would stay conquered. They seemed like the type of species that would keep fighting from the shadows for generations. Send a message to High Command, he said quietly. Request permission to negotiate terms. Terms, sir? Peace terms. The humans have earned the right to keep their little corner of space. They're too dangerous to conquer and too crazy to trust as subjects. On the Zephyrian observation ship, Commander Zethrak was reviewing the final battle reports when Dr. Kethvar approached him. Sir, I believe we've been looking at human behavior from the wrong perspective, the doctor said. How so? We've been treating their insanity as a mental disorder. But what if it's actually an adaptive trait? What if being willing to take extreme risks, fight against impossible odds, and never give up is what allowed them to survive on their death world? Commander Zethrak considered this. You're suggesting that human craziness is actually a survival mechanism? More than that, sir. I think it's a weapon, the most effective weapon in the galaxy. The Xerians have the best technology, the best training, and the best tactics, but they don't have humans' willingness to do absolutely anything to win. As if to prove his point, a message arrived from the human fleet. Dave, the same cheerful human from First Contact, appeared on screen. But now he was wearing military insignia and had scars on his face. Hey, alien friends, he said with the same impossible nth doctor. Kethavar had spent 2 years studying humans, and he was beginning to understand that everything the Zephyrian Confederacy thought they knew about survival was wrong. The breakthrough came when he started studying Earth itself. Commander, he reported to Zethrak. During their weekly briefing, I believe I've discovered why humans behave the way they do. Their home planet is actively trying to kill them. Explain. Dr. Kethvar activated the holographic display showing Earth's surface. Look at these geological readings. The planet experiences regular earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, and climate variations that would destroy most civilizations. The weather alone produces hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and floods with enough force to level cities. Commander Zethrak studied the data. How did they survive long enough to develop intelligence? That's just the beginning, sir. The planet is populated with predators specifically evolved to hunt humans, large carnivores with powerful jaws and claws, venomous creatures, microscopic organisms that cause deadly diseases. Even the plants are dangerous. Some produce toxins that can kill on contact. Officer Nithara, who had become Dr. Kethvar's research partner despite her human influence syndrome, added her own findings. Sir, humans evolved in competition with predators that were bigger, stronger, and faster than they were. Their ancestors had no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no armor. By all logic, they should have been extinct within a few generations. So how did they survive? By becoming the most dangerous predator on their planet, Dr. Kethvar said. Not through physical strength, but through something no other species had developed. The willingness to try absolutely anything if it meant staying alive. The display changed to show human archaeological records. Look at their early development. When faced with cold climates that should have killed them, they learned to make fire and clothing. When large predators threatened them, they developed tools and weapons. When food was scarce, they learned to hunt animals 10 times their size using nothing but sharp sticks and teamwork. That shows intelligence, not insanity. Sir, they hunted woolly mammoths on foot using spears, creatures weighing several tons with tusks longer than a human body. The logical response would be to avoid such animals entirely. Instead, humans developed tactics to kill them. Officer Nathara pulled up more data. It gets more interesting. When humans encountered environments that couldn't support life, they didn't avoid them. They found ways to live there anyway. Deserts, frozen wastelands, high mountain peaks, even areas with dangerous radiation. If humans found a place where they couldn't survive, they took it as a challenge. Dr. Kethvar nodded enthusiastically. And here's the key insight. Humans don't just adapt to dangerous environments. They actively seek them out. They consider surviving in impossible conditions to be a form of entertainment. The display showed images of humans engaging in various extreme sports: mountain climbing, deep-sea diving, skydiving, volcano exploration, Arctic survival challenges. These activities serve no practical purpose, Dr. Kethvar explained. Humans do them purely for the challenge. They've turned survival into a game. Commander Zethrak was beginning to see the pattern. So when the Zerians attacked, the humans weren't responding irrationally. They were responding the way their species always responds to existential threats. Exactly, sir. To humans, the Zerion invasion wasn't a military conquest. It was just another survival challenge. And they've been training for survival challenges their entire evolutionary history. Dr. Kethvar switched to a new set of data. This explains their pack bonding behavior as well. On a death world, no individual can survive alone. Humans learn to form emotional attachments that would make them willing to die for each other. It's not sentiment, it's a survival strategy. The volunteers who came from Earth to fight the Zerians were responding to a pack bonding trigger. They saw other humans in danger and couldn't help themselves. They had to protect the pack even if it meant their own death. Officer Nathara added, "We've observed this behavior in countless situations. Human parents will die to protect their children. Human soldiers will die to protect their comrades. Humans will even die to protect complete strangers if they perceive them as part of their extended pack. But they also bond with non-humans," Commander Zethrak pointed out. "They keep dangerous predators as pets." Another survival adaptation, Dr. Kethvar said. "On a world where everything is trying to kill you, it makes sense to try to form alliances with other species. Humans learned to domesticate animals not just for food, but for protection, transportation, and companionship. They turned potential enemies into allies. The implications were staggering. Human behavior wasn't random insanity. It was a perfectly logical response to living on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Their risk-taking behavior, their refusal to surrender, their willingness to try impossible solutions. These aren't mental disorders, Dr. Kethvar concluded. These are survival traits that kept them alive for millions of years. Commander Zethrak stood and paced around the room. If this is true, then humans aren't just dangerous because they're unpredictable. They're dangerous because they've been shaped by the most extreme selection pressure imaginable. Yes, sir. Every human alive today is the descendant of countless generations of survivors who refused to give up when facing impossible odds. The ones who gave up didn't have children. Officer Nathara pulled up genetic data from human volunteers. We've been studying their DNA and the results are fascinating. Humans have genetic variations that promote risk-taking, aggression, and resilience, but they also have variations that promote cooperation, empathy, and innovation. It's like their entire species was designed to survive anything. There's more, Dr. Kethvar said. Humans don't just survive, they thrive under pressure. We've observed that they actually perform better when facing challenges. Their creativity increases under stress. Their problem-solving abilities improve when resources are limited. They're literally at their best when everything is trying to kill them. Commander Zethrak stopped pacing. That explains their response to the war. The Zerians thought they were applying pressure to force surrender. Instead, they were creating optimal conditions for human performance. Exactly. Every challenge the Zerians presented just made the humans more determined, more creative, and more dangerous. The briefing continued for hours as Dr. Kethvar presented his complete findings. Humans turned obstacles into opportunities. They saw problems as puzzles to be solved. They treated death as an acceptable risk if it meant protecting something they cared about. "Sir," Officer Nathara said quietly, "there's one more thing. We've been monitoring human behavior since the war ended, and they're not celebrating the way we expected. What do you mean? They're not resting or enjoying their victory. They're already preparing for the next challenge. Some are planning missions to explore the galaxy. Others are working on new technologies. A few are even talking about making contact with the Zerions to see if they can help them rebuild. Commander Zethrak stared at her. They want to help the species that just tried to exterminate them? They say the Zerions fought bravely and deserve respect for being worthy opponents. They're actually inviting Zerion survivors to participate in human extreme sports competitions. Dr. Kethvar laughed, something he had never done before his exposure to humans. Of course they are. To humans, the Zerions weren't evil conquerors. They were just another challenge to overcome. Now that the challenge is over, they want to be friends. Are you saying humans bear no grudges? Oh, they bear grudges, sir. But they also practice something called forgiveness. They've learned that holding on to anger wastes energy that could be better spent on survival or helping their pack. Commander Zethrak sat down heavily. Dr. Kethvar, in your professional opinion, are humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy? Sir, humans aren't just the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They're the most dangerous species possible. They've been forged by millions of years of surviving on a death world. They're not just adapted for survival, they're optimized for it. And they're expanding into space. Yes, sir. And they're going to turn the entire galaxy into their playground. Every dangerous planet, every hostile environment, every impossible challenge, humans are going to see these as opportunities for fun and growth. Officer Nithara added quietly, Sir, there's something else. The human influence syndrome we've been worried about. I don't think it's a syndrome. I think it's evolution. Explain. Humans are showing us a better way to live. Not safer, more alive. The crew members who've been exposed to human behavior are happier, more creative, and more resilient than standard Zephyrians. They're not becoming sick. They're becoming more than they were. Commander Zethrak considered this for a long moment. Dr. Kethvar, prepare a new report for the Confederacy Council. Tell them we've discovered the truth about humans, which is, they're not crazy despite being survivors. They're survivors because they're crazy enough to never give up, no matter how impossible the odds become, and that makes them the most powerful force in the galaxy. As if summoned by their conversation, a communication alert chimed. Dave appeared on the screen, still gray. The Zerion Empire's final gambit came without warning. Admiral Krextar, his pride wounded by the humiliating ceasefire, had convinced the High Command to authorize the use of their most terrible weapon. The Planet Killer, a device that could turn an entire world into cosmic dust, was already in position above Earth. This ends now, he broadcasted to the human fleet. Surrender immediately or we will destroy your homeworld. You have 6 hours to decide. On the Zephyrian observation ship, Commander Zethrak watched the human response with a mixture of fascination and dread. Surely faced with the complete destruction of Earth and billions of lives, even humans would see reason and surrender. The response came from Dave, now apparently some kind of human military coordinator, still wearing his characteristic grin even in the face of extinction. Hey there, Admiral Krextar. Thanks for the ultimatum. We've given it serious thought and we've decided. Nope, we're not surrendering, but thanks for asking nicely. Dr. Kethvar was monitoring human communications across all frequencies. Sir, they're not panicking. They're not even afraid. They're planning something. What could they possibly be planning? Their entire species is about to be extinct. Officer Nithara, who had requested permanent assignment to human observation duties, was tracking the massive evacuation efforts around Earth. Sir, they're moving their population off the planet. Every available ship is being used to evacuate civilians. That makes sense. At least they're trying to save lives. But sir, they're not evacuating everyone. Millions of humans are choosing to stay on Earth. Commander Zethrak stared at the display. Why would they stay to die? The answer came in another broadcast from Dave. Attention Zerion fleet. Just wanted you to know that Earth isn't going down without a fight. We've got a little surprise prepared for you. Hope you like fireworks. What happened next would be talked about in alien military academies for centuries. Instead of surrendering or fleeing, the humans had turned their entire planet into the largest improvised explosive device in galactic history. Using their geothermal plants, nuclear reactors, and volcanic activity, they had created a chain reaction that would destabilize Earth's core if triggered. But that wasn't the insane part. The insane part was that they planned to trigger it themselves. With the Zerian fleet in orbit, sir, Lieutenant Vexnall reported to Admiral Krextar, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from Earth's surface. It appears the humans are preparing to destroy their own planet. That's impossible. No species would commit planetary suicide. Sir, we're receiving a message from the human surface. Dave's face appeared on screen one last time, but now he was standing in what appeared to be a massive control center deep underground. Behind him, thousands of humans were working at stations preparing for something unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Krextar, Dave said, his grin wider than ever. You wanted to destroy Earth? Well, we decided to save you the trouble. We're going to blow it up ourselves. But here's the thing, we're taking your entire fleet with us. You're bluffing. No rational species would destroy their own homeworld. Admiral, you still don't get it, do you? We're not rational. We're human, and humans have a saying. If you want to take us down, we're taking you with us. Dr. Kethvar was frantically recording everything. Sir, the humans have weaponized their home planet. They've turned it into a trap. The evacuation ships were accelerating away from Earth at maximum speed, carrying as many civilians as possible. But the planet's surface was still populated by millions of volunteers who had chosen to stay behind to operate the detonation system. This is madness, Admiral Krexter screamed. You're committing genocide against your own species. Nope, Dave replied cheerfully. We're committing genocide against your species. Our people are going to survive and rebuild somewhere else. Your people are going to become part of the biggest explosion in this sector's history. Thanks for playing, though. The Zerion fleet began emergency maneuvers trying to retreat to minimum safe distance, but they had positioned themselves for a planetary bombardment, and their massive ships were too close and too slow to escape the blast radius. On the Zephyrian observation ship, Commander Zethrak watched in awe and terror as Earth began to glow with increasing intensity. Sir, Officer Nithara reported, human communications are still active. They're singing. The audio feed crackled to life, and the bridge was filled with thousands of human voices singing something they called "We Are the Champions." Even facing imminent death, they were celebrating. The detonation sequence is irreversible now, Dr. Kethvar reported. In approximately 3 minutes, Earth's core will destabilize. The explosion will consume everything within 10 million kilometers. Admiral Krextar made one last desperate attempt. Stop this. We'll withdraw. We'll never attack human space again. Dave's voice came back over the communication channel, now singing along with his people. Sorry, Admiral. Too late to back out now. But hey, look on the bright side. You're about to witness the most spectacular fireworks display in galactic history. The final transmission from Earth was Dave's voice, still somehow cheerful even in the face of death. To everyone watching this, humans don't surrender. Humans don't give up, and humans don't go quietly. Tell everyone in the galaxy that we were here, we were crazy, and we were awesome. See you on the other side. Earth exploded. The detonation was visible from 3 star systems away. The planet didn't just break apart. It became a miniature star for 17 seconds, consuming the entire Zerian fleet and creating a shockwave that would be detected by astronomers for generations. In the aftermath, as the debris cloud slowly dispersed, the Zephyrian observation ship received a message from the human evacuation fleet. It was Dave again, somehow still alive and still grinning. Hey, alien friends. Miss us? Don't worry, we're not gone. We're just getting started. Earth was getting boring anyway. Now we get to explore the whole galaxy and find new places to call home. And we learned something important from this whole experience. What did you learn? Commander Zethrak asked, though he dreaded the answer. We learned that if you threaten something we love, we'll destroy it ourselves before we let you have it. We call it the Scorched Earth strategy. Pretty effective, right? Dr. Kethvar was updating his files. Sir, the humans have just demonstrated that they're willing to destroy their own homeworld rather than submit to conquest. They've turned planetary suicide into a military tactic. How many survived the evacuation? Approximately 60% of the population. 6 billion humans are now homeless and scattered across multiple star systems. And how are they responding to this catastrophe? Officer Nithara checked the human communications networks. Sir, they're treating it as an adventure. They're already making jokes about Earth 2.0 and planning to terraform multiple worlds. Some are saying this is the best thing that ever happened to humanity, because now they have an excuse to spread across the entire galaxy. Commander Zethrak sat in stunned silence. Any other species would be devastated by the loss of their home world. Humans were treating it as an opportunity for expansion. Sir, Dr. Kethavar said quietly, I believe we need to update our assessment of human capabilities. In what way? We thought humans were dangerous because they were willing to die for their beliefs. We were wrong. They're dangerous because they're willing to destroy anything, including themselves, rather than accept defeat. The communication from Dave continued. Oh, and we wanted to thank you Zephyrian folks for all your research and friendship. We've learned a lot about ourselves from your observations. We're officially inviting the entire Zephyrian Confederacy to join us in exploring and colonizing the galaxy. It'll be fun. Fun? Commander Zethrak asked weakly. Sure. We've got this great idea for extreme terraforming. We're going to find the most dangerous, inhospitable planets in the galaxy and turn them into garden worlds. Want to help? We could use some good scientists who aren't afraid to try crazy experiments. Dr. Kethavar looked at Commander Zethrak. Sir, I request permission to join the human colonization effort. Doctor, you're suffering from human influence syndrome. Yes, sir. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. For the first time in my life, I'm excited about the future. Humans don't just survive, they turn survival into an art form. They've shown us that being safe isn't the same as being alive. Officer Nithara nodded in agreement. Sir, half our crew has requested transfers to human space. They want to learn what it means to really live instead of just existing safely. Commander Zethrak looked around his bridge. His crew was smiling, something Zephyrians had rarely done before encountering humans. They looked excited, energetic, and more alive than he had ever seen them. Dr. Kethavar, prepare a final report for the Confederacy Council. What should it say, sir? Commander Zethrak considered everything they had learned about humans over the past 3 years. Tell them that we were correct in our initial assessment. Humans are completely, utterly, thoroughly insane by any rational standard. And that insanity is the most powerful force in the galaxy. Humans don't just adapt to impossible situations. They create impossible situations and then thrive in them. They've weaponized optimism, militarized friendship, and turned destruction into a form of artistic expression.